Okay? So we are going, I'm going to shut off this air conditioner. Because it's loud. Okay. There we go. There we go. We are in chapter 9. And we had just, Noah had come out of the ark now, and God made a promise with Noah that that he is going to no longer going to destroy using water, or destroy the earth in the same way that he flooded the earth. It is a promise made by God, and we're going to see that here beginning at verse 8. So does somebody want to read 8 to 17 of chapter 9?
Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, "Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you. As many as came out of the ark, it is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth." And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you, for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant. This is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth." God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth."
Okay. So a couple of things that we want to note in here before we go on. Of course, the story is very familiar. We would have had it back in our kindergarten or in our Sunday school days, and even if you were ever part of Lutheran schools or whatever, the story of Noah and the ark, and then the promise of God afterwards is certainly very familiar. But there's a couple of things in here that I think are noteworthy, and that is because we see in here when God makes this covenant promise, note that he makes the covenant promise not just with Noah, not just with man, but with whom?
All of the animals.
With everything that breathes. Everything on the earth that breathes, he makes this promise that he will not destroy with a flood. And it shows that, or it kind of leads us to believe that when God speaks to all living creatures, they know what he is saying to them. They respond to what he is saying. Same thing as we saw with Jonah when God sends the great fish to take, so God speaks to all creation, and they listen and they understand. And so as he speaks to man, and he is also speaking to all the rest of creation. Didn't think of it. I have this picture that's on my phone. I should have put it up on the screen. To me, it's just a cute little cartoon. It's a picture of an island, and there's a couple of cute dinosaurs on the island, and you see the ark floating away, and the one dinosaur says to the other one, "Oh, I forgot that was today." I always thought that was such a cute picture. But God has promised now that He is not going to cause a flood that will destroy the earth. Now, we certainly see floods. We see the damage that great storms can cause. We see all that, but a flood to the magnitude of what we saw when God wiped out every living, breathing creature off the earth, God has promised never to do that again. So I think that's a piece that's significant. The other things here that I think are, if not significant, they are certainly noteworthy, and that is that that His sign is going to be this rainbow. I will put my bow in the clouds, or I have set my bow in the clouds. There's a good chance that they had never seen a rainbow, that they would not have, that this will be something they will see for the first time. Or, well, you could possibly say that when they see the rainbow, which they have seen before, now they know God's promise to it. But this gives you an impression that this will be the first time that they will see, or at least when His bow is revealed, it will be the first time. And the other thing that we see in this text, the last piece of that is, it is quite possible that the first thing that this will be the first time they're ever going to see clouds. Because this is something that he's going to set His bows in clouds, and they will be a sign of the covenant. So when I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is now seen in clouds. So again, one of the things we talked about last week is that the flood didn't just destroy. The flood didn't just wipe out all of the living and breathing creatures on the earth. The flood also changed the earth. And it changed the atmospheric condition of the earth and all of these different things. And so it's quite possible that there never were clouds before. It's quite possible that when God sent rain, it just rained. It just set water. But now we're going to see clouds, and we're going to see a rainbow. We'll see the rainbow in there. And so that's a possibility, because we certainly don't hear of clouds when it came to the time of creation or any time before here. So that is something that when God caused the rain to fall, when God caused like we said, that tsunami of water to cover the earth, it doesn't say that there was cloud covering and those kind of things. And so it's quite possible that clouds are now part of the post-flood condition of the earth. It's possible. Okay? So those are just a couple of things, but the key to this whole thing is that this is going to be a sign of God's covenant promise. And we're going to see this word sign used throughout all of Scriptures. The Gospel of John uses the word signs all the time when he speaks of the miracles of Jesus. That these are always signs pointing to God and His promises. And so we see that here, that this is one of those signs that God will display. So it's almost like I mean, we of course can put a scientific reasoning to what causes a rainbow, I guess, or man tries to put scientific reasoning to it, but this is a sign from God. This would be, in essence, a miracle from God. This sign of the rainbow in the midst of the clouds. The clouds bring the great fear. I imagine the clouds would bring great fear not long after the flood, and now as time has gone on, those clouds, they bring less fear about total destruction, but clouds nonetheless bring a lot of fear and anxiety. Any of you probably experienced that Friday night, right? You could watch the ominous clouds as they were coming. It probably looked black as it was coming towards you. And then as they came and the winds were high and the clouds were low, it gives you this eerie sense, and there's a fear or a terror that comes with clouds. And so those clouds remind us of a sin-filled world. Clouds remind you that sin has affected all of creation, and that includes the weather. And so when we see clouds, it's not just it's one thing when we see the light puffy clouds. That's kind of pretty, that's made perfect for Bob Ross paintings, that kind of thing. But when it speaks of clouds, it is speaking of ominous, a dark cloud. And yet,
like down here on the bulletin cover.
yeah, like you see on the bulletin cover, yeah. So, all right. Now, would somebody want to read 18 to the end of the chapter?
The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backward, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. He said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
Okay. All right. So here we see the promise of God's rainbow as they left the ark, and then we see that a brief statement about the sons of Noah who go from the ark. I think it's interesting. Here we see Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And note the first thing that we see in there is, and we see it in a parenthetical statement, Ham is the father of Canaan. Well, that's Moses, the Lord wanted through Moses to make a clear indication that this is why Canaan is cursed. Okay? So right away he says it. The three were sons of Noah. From these, all the people of the whole earth were now dispersed. They spread out over the known land at that time. And so then it goes right from there, as Claudia read it, into the fact that here they are, that God had wiped out all of mankind because of its sinfulness. And they come off the ark, and what is the first thing that we see? We see that we see the sinfulness of Noah's son. Not of his sons, but specifically of one of his sons, Ham, the father of Cain. And you don't really necessarily see the sinfulness here because of our English language. Okay? Because when we read this, we could say that he goes in the tent and he sees that his father is naked. Okay? So, when we would look at that, it would be almost like you know, if you open the door and there you saw something you didn't see and you close the door right away and you walk out, right? That is coincidental, right? This is different. When it says that he saw the nakedness of his father, the way that the Hebrew the Hebrew writing is, he saw it and it enticed him, or it excited him, or he responded to it, or something along those lines. So when it says that he saw the nakedness of his father, it doesn't mean that he just saw it. It means that he acted upon it. So what was that acting upon it? The scripture doesn't say. But you can read into that in some significance. Okay? And so what it shows here is Ham is taking advantage of a drunk father, sexual. Okay? That's what it's saying. And so he goes outside, and then and he tells his brothers outside that he didn't. Now, did he go to the extent to tell them all that he did, or did he just tell them that he was laying there in nakedness and probably in an aroused form, that type of thing? And so what we do see then is we see the faithfulness and we see the compassion and of the other two brothers. We see the compassion of Shem and Japheth as they now take a garment and they put it on their shoulders, and it says that they walk backward, and so they don't even look upon the abomination that was, whatever that was. Their faces are turned backward. They didn't see the father's nakedness. So now when Noah wakes up from his wine, right, he knew what his youngest son had. Now, see what it said? It didn't say what his younger son had said or seen, what his younger son had done to him. Okay? And that is why he is cursed. Not because he saw something he shouldn't have seen. It's because he did something he shouldn't have done. He acted upon that. Isn't it amazing? The first sin that we see out of the ark is a sin of sexuality. In fact, a sin of homosexuality.
Do you think that Ham was drunk with his dad? You think they drank together and it was like...
Doesn't say. It doesn't say. We don't know. My guess is if he was, Scripture would have said, and it didn't. So Noah does two things here. One, he curses Canaan. He curses So what is he doing? He is not only cursing Ham, who is he cursing? All of Ham's descendants. Yes. That his sin is that there is implication to sin. And the implication here is pretty significant in that the implication is not just to Ham, but it is to all of Canaan. And then he also, on top of that, he offers blessing. And blessing to Shem and to Japheth and their descendants. Okay? So now we see it concluded that it speaks of that Noah lived another 350 years, in addition to the 600 prior to that, and then he dies, and that's the story of Noah, and so that's where we end it at chapter 9. So now we're going to begin at chapter 10. And chapter 10 is going to speak of the generations of Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth. And to all the sons that were born to them. And these sons are known as the Table of Nations. And so what this genealogy is going to show us here, it is going to show us the genealogy from Noah all the way to Abraham. And it is going to show the kind of the broad region of how they spread out and to where they went. So we could, if you would like, since we do have Nathan here, do you want to read the names for us? We'll do them in sections. Why don't we start with verses 2 through 5?
The sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshish, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Rithath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastland peoples spread in their lands, each with his own language, by their clans in their nations.
Okay. So here we have a list of what would be the least to the greatest, as far as kind of like in the importance of the descendants of Shem. So that is how they are listed. From Gomer would come the Assyrians. This is where we would see the Assyrian people. They would have been located north of the Black Sea, and these were actually the Assyrian people, the Assyrian like an outlying tribe that helped in the defeat of the Assyrian people in the history later on. Magog, again, they would be the Scythians, and you'll see the Magog later. That is as they speak of, as we see the gods of Gog and Magog, that they became it became a people that were unfaithful to God, the Scythian people. So we're going to see that. We're going to see the Tubal. They're the ones that they were just outside of Cilicia in Asia Minor, and so we'll see on and on as they are spread out across the region, mostly all in the eastern part of the world, the known world at that time. Tarshish, that's the name that's familiar. Where do we know the name Tarshish from? Anybody remember? Paul spent a lot of time there in Tarshish, which would have been southern Spain. Remember where Paul, part of Paul's missionary journey was that great desire to plant churches in Spain, and so that was, and to kind of go back to that area of Tarshish, where he was from, right? And so that would be where we are at. Now, we come to the sons of Ham. Sons of Ham from verses 6 through verse 20. Nathan, can I lean on you again?
The sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Rama, and Sabtika. The sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man.
Just to interrupt, a warrior, a soldier. He would have been the first, that's where the first army would have come about. Go ahead.
He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, Reboth, Ir, Calah, and Resen, between Nineveh and Calah, that is the great city. Egypt fathered Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtalim, Pathrasim, Calusim, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorim. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites dispersed, and the territory of the Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza, and in the direction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations.
Okay.
Is Egypt the same as Mizraim?
Pardon me?
The son Egypt that Nathan read, or Nathaniel read, is that the same as Mizraim?
Mitzrayim, yeah, that's Egypt, right?
That's the same name?
Yeah, that would be the Hebrew translation. It actually, Mitzrayim is actually translated to Egypts. To Egypts, that's the actual translation. To Egypts, upper and so that would be upper and lower Egypt, yeah. So, but the actual translation for that Hebrew word is to Egypts. And then, some of the other things that we see here, when he talked about Nimrod being that mighty hunter, he had become very well known for that. And not necessarily was in the favor of God. Okay, he had gotten to become quite popular on his own, and there are some writings out there that believe that he was the one that directed the work to build the tower in Babel. Okay, that would have been Nimrod. Now, of course, Nineveh is a name that is certainly familiar to us in verses 10 and 11 there. Calah there, that's probably, and Resen, those probably are like suburbs of Nineveh, that type of thing. And so we see these, as we now see the sons and the sons now growing in generation, and you're starting to see a few names that'll be familiar later on. Other names are not as familiar, and some of that just means that they eventually are they just are overtaken by some of the other nations. They have a short period of time, and then they're gone. They kind of get absorbed into other nations. But there's an interesting phrase here that is confusing, and that is verse 20. Why do you think verse 20 is kind of confusing?
It mentions that they all have their own languages.
Yes. Yes, isn't that strange when it says in chapter 11, the first verse, now the whole earth had one language and the same words. So, don't get that too confused. Don't take this in a literal timeline. Okay? When we get to the beginning of chapter 11, we're going to be speaking about a specific event in time, a specific period in time. But when you go back into 10 and you see all the descendants, and you see as they move on, the point being is that all of his descendants of Ham ultimately had their own languages. So part of God confusing the languages in chapter 11 was he ultimately confused all of Ham's kids, that none of them even had the language of each other. Think about when we talk about the cursing of Canaan, the cursing of Ham, and then of course of Canaan. One of those curses is
They can't even communicate.
yeah. Imagine all the Gores come together for a family reunion, and every one of the Gore family speaks a different language, and they didn't know what it was. Each one didn't know what it was. It wouldn't make for much of a family reunion, would it? Well, that's kind of what we are seeing here. So don't read it into, there's conflict in God's word. Look at the fact that chapter 10 is speaking of the generations. It doesn't mean that they always had those multiple languages. But what it does mean is that when God gave them all the different languages, right in that one family, they were all divided already. God divided them up, okay? So, why don't we go 21 to the end of the chapter, and then we'll get rid of all these names.
To Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth, children were born. The sons of Shem, Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arpachshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. To Eber were born two sons. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Almodad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzal, Tikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Joab. All these were the sons of Joktan. The territory in which they lived extended from Mesha in the direction of Sephir to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem, by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. These are the clans of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies and their nations. And from these the nations spread abroad on the earth after the flood.
Thank you, by the way. That it's such a beautiful, the way that you can pronounce Hebrew names is really wonderful. A couple of notes here that I just want you to know is we see Eber is brought up right away, father of the children of Eber. The reason that is significant, again, we're going to see these kind of like from the greatest, the significant to the lesser significant, I guess you could say. The children of Eber were mentioned because the Hebrew people were the descendants of Eber. This is where the Hebrews came from. And we saw in here the name Shelah, right, was mentioned. That was because of his son Eber. He was the ancestor of the Hebrews. So those were some important people that I think are for us to recognize. Of course, Sheba, right? That was that territory in southwest Arabia. That was the home of the queen, right? Who visited King Solomon, Queen Sheba. That was the Queen of Sheba. So we're familiar with that. And so this is that significance of all of these various families. We're going, and again, we're going to see where the ones who were faithful had spread, where the ones that were not faithful to God had spread. And how they had covered over all of the earth. Now, interesting, we are going to see then this next section of text. And again, these events that are here, this event happened before really the dividing of all the nations. This is why the nations divided. So really, if you would have, I don't know why Moses would have written it the way that he wrote it. Or did he want to conclude Noah's ancestry, and then was he going to explain why they divided, why they dispersed? That could be in the way that he was writing, because he wanted to keep all of the history of Noah together, and then that's a possibility. But this did not come after chapter 10. This is why we went through the exercise of showing how they spread, because it was because of this particular event in chapter 11. So, does somebody want to read 11 from 1 through 9?
Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men were building. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel or Babel. Do we say Babel or Babel?
Sure.
Because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth.
I use the word Babel. I mean, you can use Babel, it's fine. The reason I use Babel is because that's where we get our English word babbling
Right.
from. That nonsensical. Is that something did your parents ever tell you that? Quit babbling? Yeah. Speak clearly, quit babbling. So, here, of course, we see a few things that are, interesting, if not significant. The whole earth, one language, same words, right? That they settled in one place. And why is that a sin? Why would that be considered a concern of God? That they, not so much that they have one language and the same words, but that all the people migrated from the east, they found a plain, and they settled in one place. Why is that significant? Well, that's definitely, that would be that's absolutely right there. But even that way, and certainly that is why they did it. But what is the sin of the fact that they wanted to be in one place?
They didn't listen. God wanted them to scatter and fill the earth.
God said, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." Yeah. And so they, you know, isn't it interesting? Let's look at it in New Testament perspective. Okay, Matthew 28, the Great Commission. What is anybody? What's the Great Commission?
Go ye therefore and teach all nations.
Right. Go. Teach you as you are going. Go. That type of thing. And so what did the believers do? Did they go? No, they didn't go. They all hunkered down in one place. They hungered, and God said go. So what did God have to do? He made a move. How did he make a move? Persecution. Yeah, they got driven out of the area. Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to go? He's going to poke them with a sharp stick and get them out there, you know, that type of thing. And so we see that. It's one thing for us to look at Babel or the early church and be critical of it, right? But we do the same thing, don't we? Look at how when you look at the life of a church, when a church is planted, it is planted in, you know, more often than not, the church planters came from a different area, and they came into this area, whether they spun off of another church or whatever the case may be, and the church moves and it grows, right? And what happens as soon as it grows?
It gets comfortable.
It gets comfortable. Yeah, have we ever done that here? Oh yeah. See, we're no worse. We're no better than anybody else. We do the same thing. Our desire is to you know, become comfortable in one language and one way of doing things and one, you know, whatever that oneness is. And even when people are invited in, you can be a part of this place if you want to be like us, right? And so we will speak with words of being inviting, but we want to be, we're very much like the people of Genesis chapter 11. And it is, come let us build for ourselves a city and a tower with its top to the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. You know, how many churches, and there's lots of them, like I don't want to say all, but many or most, what do we try to do is we try to build security. We try to build a nest egg. We try to build something that allows it to be content in this place, and we build it with its tops in the heavens. And so what do? We build up in heaven so we can, and that's another way of us saying, Lord, look at what we have done, and we praise God for allowing us to do this, but it is really our desire to make that happen, to make a place for ourselves so that we won't be scattered. So we build, we build whatever it is that is necessary so that we have something to carry on for the future. Not necessarily, and we don't do it necessarily so that we have resources to use for the work of the church. It's more so that we have the resources to be able to make sure that we have a place, so that we have what we need. Do you remember back the I Love Lucy shows? And the I Love Lucy shows, you had Ricky Ricardo, and when Lucy would do something that that Ricky didn't like, which was every show. And he would go up to Lucy and he would say to Lucy, you got some splaining to do, right? I have a little sign in my office. If you ever get a chance to take a look at it, it was a thought that had come to me about 20 years ago. And it speaks about we as the church at large. On the day of judgment, when God comes back to judge us, if the